All right, in this video, we're going to do a little demonstration about how to create a player that can shoot or throw projectiles. So right now in my setup here, I don't have much. I've got a little setup that creates a 600 wide by 400 tall canvas. I've got a gray background, so that's pretty simple. I have two player position variables, px and py. So player x and player y. It goes along the left-hand side. In my draw function, I redraw the background, turn off the outlines with no stroke. I call a function move player. Move player is defined down here. If key is down 87, 87 is the key code for the W key, so that's going to make my player move up. It's going to increase the Y position. And then if the key is down for the S key, key code 83 is the S key, that will move the player in a downward position or downward direction. So that's what move player does. It looks for W or the S key to move this player ellipse up and down. Then I draw the player. That's pretty simple. It's just a big green ellipse drawn at whatever location px and py are at. Okay, so when I run it, click once into the canvas and we can move our player up and down, but right now it doesn't do anything else. What I want to do is I'm going to update and draw some projectiles. I also have this function key pressed. Anytime you press a key on, it'll tell you that key code. So that's how I figured out that the W was an 87 and the S was an 83. Actually, I just realized my W key goes up and my S key goes down. So they're, or the opposite. W goes down, S goes up. So I need to flip those. I put them in the wrong one. So this should be 83 and this should be 87. Now I have it correct. Let's see. S goes down, W goes up. Okay, so I'm going to make sure 83 is the W, 87 is the S. Okay. This function key pressed is what's giving me the key codes down here in the console. Now we want to do this mouse released function. So every time I release the mouse, this is one way that we could use that to shoot, right? We could also do it for key presses, but right now I think we want to do it. I'm going to do this one with a mouse released. I guess we could have done it with a key press, but I think it's kind of nice to do mouse release. So it's just one more thing that will be in your repertoire. So what happens is I want to make a list of projectiles. So I'm going to have a list that's going to have two variables at the top. Let projectile x's equal an empty list. So at the beginning, I had this list of projectile x positions, and I'm just going to leave it blank. Now my projectiles are going to shoot from the player across the screen, so they're going to need both an x and a y. I might have multiple projectiles y positions, and we'll make that equal to an empty array. I know that if you're more advanced than this, you know how to use objects. There are better ways to do this. But for right now in our class, we haven't learned about objects yet. So I'm just sticking with the stuff that we know. Okay, so that's why I'm not making a bullet object or a projectile object. We're just going to store its x and y position. Okay, so right now I have an empty list. There's nothing in, or an empty array. There's nothing in that list of projectiles because I haven't shot anything yet. I haven't started throwing a ball. Okay. So down in my or in my mouse released, what I want to do is I want to say, hey, take that variable projectile x's and push, which means add an item on, and I want to add on the item that is right where the player is. So the player's x position is variable px. I want to move it a little bit out to the right. I don't want it to be underneath the player. So I want the ball to spawn like right here, right in front of the player. So I'm going to say like plus, I think 5 should be enough just to shift it a little bit out to the right. Well, we could do a little bit of, I guess my ellipse is 40 pixels wide. So maybe I want it to be a little bit further than 5, maybe like 20, half the pixels out. We could adjust this later. So let's just go like 15. Instead of being in the center, we'll shift a little bit further out. I'm going to add that X position on to my projectile X's. Now remember, every projectile needs both an X position and a Y position. So I'm going to do the same thing, projectile Y's position with a capital Y, dot push, and I'm going to pass in PY. I'm not going to add the 15 because I don't want it to be above or below the center. I want it to be right in the center of the player. So projectile Y's push the player Y position. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print both of those lists. So I'm going to say print projectile X's dot to string. Since projectile X's is a list of values, I need to actually use this dot to string method so that I can see the data that's inside that list. Okay, if I don't, I'll show you what happens. We're going to also print projectile Y's positions. We'll leave it like that. Oh, I need some semicolons. Okay. So now when I run it, click over here, and I can see that as I move up and down, and whenever I click, I can start to see my lists get longer and longer. Actually, that looks fine. Let's just leave it just like that. I can see the positions. Okay, I've got different positions added. The problem is that my projectiles, 1, aren't being drawn, and 2, they aren't being moved yet. Okay. Okay. So we've got projectiles that are being added to my list of X positions and Y positions. But the problem is that they have not been drawn yet. So I've got this function called draw projectiles. And what I want to do is for every single projectile in that list, every number in this list, I want to draw a little ball. Okay. So I'm going to write a loop. And my loop's going to start with a for loop. For let I equals 0. It says, hey, start with an index of 0. Okay. As long as I is less than X positions, projectile X's dot length, as long as it's less than the length of this list, I want you to I plus equals 1. So that's going to create the loop that's going to iterate through all of these 65, 65, 65, 65. Right now, 4. Then I add another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I've got 6 loops. I want to start printing them or displaying them on the screen. I've already, in draw projectiles, I've created the fill color of red. I'm now going to draw a circle. Circle. Oh, I don't know why that popped up. Sometimes if that happens, you just circle space and then do your parentheses. Projectile X's sub. Now I want the position. If I only wanted to draw the first one, I could use position 0. And then projectile Y's sub 0. And then the diameter of my circle. So I'm going to make my circle, 20 pixels across. So I should get a red circle now when I click on the screen. What happened? It didn't work. I think I know what happened. My draw projectiles function has not been actually called yet. So up in the draw function, we need to delete those comment marks And now I'm calling draw projectiles. I move the player, I draw the player, I draw the projectiles. Good, I can run this. And now I'm starting to draw the ellipse, or the circle that represents my projectile. I need that thing to move though. So first I want to draw the circle, and then I want to increase its x position so that it moves to the right. So I'm going to say projectile x's sub, right now we're talking about the first position, plus equals 5. I'm just going to move it across the screen so that it will update every time. It'll add 5 pixels, and that will give the illusion that that bullet is moving across. So it looks great. One bullet's fine. It doesn't keep going because all I'm ever drawing is that first projectile, this one here. We can see it started at 75, 200, then it was at 980, 200, then it was at 1655, and it's way off the screen to the right. What I need to do is not just look at the first element in this list. I need to draw this one, and then draw this one, and then draw this one. So I need to use the iterator variable, and we called that I. So anywhere down here where we have projectile sub 0, we're modifying that to be projectile sub I. Okay, and so now when I shoot, it moves the first one, and then it adds the second one and starts to move that, and I can... Good. We've now got some projectiles working. This was a really long first video. I hope this helped. On the next video, we're going to go out and limit how many projectiles we can make and make them delete from the list.